Joining me now to discuss all this, author and commentator Bonnie Greer. I could see you.
Great opening.
Could see you nodding along to some of that. We'll come to you. And Conservative radio host Ben Ferguson. Don't know if you were nodding along, Ben, but we will shortly find out. Ben, let's start with you then. I mean, in all of this, a crime is a crime, right? Of course, a crime has got to be tried in court.
Well, look, the problem is there's not a crime that's committed here, and it's going to end up being thrown out. This is the dumbest case I've ever seen brought, especially against a former president. There's a reason why federal prosecutors did not prosecute this same crime when it was before them. The former district attorney in New York also, in an interview this morning, said he did not bring this crime against Donald Trump when he had 4 years to do it because he said he believed it was a ridiculous charge. And that was a liberal Democrat who said that as well. This activist DA, Alvin Bragg, has overstepped here. Democrats were begging him in the final hours to not do this. Some of the biggest allies of Barack Obama were saying publicly on TV, he's overstepping. He needs to walk back from the brink. So you just gave the biggest in-kind donation, I think, in political history with this indictment to Donald Trump. You're rallying troops behind him. A lot of people that didn't like Donald Trump, by the way, are giving him money, which you just mentioned, in historic numbers. So I think this might be the biggest backfire in political history as well.
Well, let's see if we can tip out the scales then with Bonnie here in the studio. Bonnie, let's talk about some of what Ben mentioned then. By just discussing this, by just talking about the figures from the weekend, are we emboldening Trump's campaign?
Well, you can't embolden Donald Trump any more than he's born to be. This is how this guy rolls. And I'm saying, as a former New Yorker, I mean, Donald Trump's been in the fire for, 30, 40, 50 years. They've even got a headline on the New York Times that was in the 70s about the trouble he was in. So Donald has kind of been in this water for a long time. And Ben is right. Of course, this is going to galvanize his followers. Anything would galvanize his followers. So, if he ate a ham sandwich in front of, whatever, that would galvanize them. So that's not the issue. It's also, if the Republican Party is crazy enough to actually run him, which would be superb, he's going to get beaten again. See, the thing is this, and I think that what's overlooked, the United States is a country of laws, not men. I don't know who said that, but that is a quote. The district attorney is an elected official, and the district attorney determines within his or her district what the law is. The feds don't get involved, and people from the outside don't get involved. Now, this case will fall or rise tomorrow in the court when the judge decides whether it's worth it. And the other thing we need to remember is this indictment was brought by ordinary Americans, not by the district attorney. It's brought by the grand jury. So he brings the case, they decide, and then the judge says, okay, I like it or I don't. That's it.
That was a point I wanted to bring up with Ben, so thanks for explaining that, especially to our British viewers and our other international viewers, how the US justice system works. Because as Bonnie brightly pointed out there, it's a grand jury. It's a peer of normal people in this court, Ben. The district attorney, democratically nominated, yes. But if you are saying, as many sort of Trump supporters or GOP supporters are, that it's a politically motivated witch hunt and it's a sham trial, and not my words, but the words of plenty of supporters out there, is that not saying there's something wrong with the US justice system?
No, because look, grand juries are very much not connected to the backstory on these types of indictments. I'll give you a great example. The grand jury doesn't know that the federal government refused to prosecute and said there was no crime here. The grand jury also doesn't know that they are turning a misdemeanor into a felony. That's the problem with this case. You can get indictments, and there are countless hundreds and hundreds of thousands of indictments that have been thrown out immediately and or on appeal. You are in a very limited box when you're on a grand jury, and your job is to look at what they put in front of you. You have an activist DA that's selectively giving you information. You don't understand the backstory here. You don't understand the Fed said there's no crime here. You don't know that the former DA said there's no crime here. And you don't know all of these things. So when he comes in and he says to you, here is my case, they may not even realize that he has created out of thin air a felony that doesn't exist. This will be thrown out. Mark my word, it will be thrown out. And that's where this DA is going to have egg on his face.
Ben, we don't know the details of the exact charges yet. Of course, we'll have to wait for that to be until tomorrow.
Ben's also given the beauty of the grand jury system. They aren't a bunch of lawyers. They aren't people who went to Harvard Law, Yale Law. They aren't politicians. They aren't political commentators. They're Joe Blow and his wife from the street. And they decided that this needed to go to a judge. The judge then decides, no, this isn't, he might throw it out tomorrow. That's his job.
I don't
the job
think
of
this
the
judge will throw it
people,
out tomorrow,
Ben, let
to
me
be
finish.
clear.
The job of the people is determine what it looks like to them. Now, again, it could be thrown out. Trump is innocent until proven guilty. And that's the end of this story until the judge rules, if he rules tomorrow.
Ben.
It's not the end of the story because this political harassment has been going on since 2016. And by the way, Hillary Clinton, if you're going to claim that Donald Trump has committed this crime of misappropriating funds, well, hold on, I'm saying the prosecutor. I'm saying the prosecutor. All right, let me be clear. Alvin Bragg is saying that Donald Trump took money and he said it was legal fees when it actually wasn't, and it was a hush payment. If that is true, then you would have to go back and charge Hillary Clinton for the exact same crime in the exact same year in the exact same place, New York City. She had the Steele dossier. Well, there's no shaking the head here. This is a fact.
No, I am shaking my head, Ben.
Hold on, let me finish. Hold on, let me just finish because people need to understand this around the world. Hillary Clinton paid for the Steele dossier. They labeled that in her campaign finance report as legal fees. She was found guilty of doing that wrong, and the FCC forced her and the Democratic National Committee to pay a fine. And even then, a DA did not say that she should be charged criminally. That is exactly the same law that's being used against Donald Trump right now.
If you're going to dust that down, if you're going to bring that from the archive, let's just really deal with. Let's just really deal with what it is.
Same time.
Let's deal with what it is, Ben. Let's deal with what it is. The DA of the day. This is not some kind of thing back in the day. Of the day decides what the charge is. This isn't ancient history, mate. This is today. Now, somebody wants to come up and if somebody wants to come up and charge Hillary Clinton, well, fine. Nobody's done it.
Let's bring it back.
They're not doing it because this is political, and they're going after Donald Trump because they hate him. Hillary Clinton, 2016, the same year they're saying this payment.
Man, you're talking about something 6 years ago. Too late, out of order, too late.
I'm going to bring it to the present day.
Too late, 6 years ago, too late.
Ben, I'm not trying to gloss over history. I see the point you're making, but let's bring it to the present day. Let's bring it back to Donald Trump. That list that we read out at the beginning of the show, January 6th, Georgia 2020, the dossier of documents at Mar-a-Lago. When you look at all that in sort of entirety, isn't it the case that the American people deserve a bit better on the behavior standards?
I think they deserve better from activist woke prosecutors who have been put in by George Soros, who are trying to take out their political opponents, the leader of the Republican Party, and that's been their obsession since 2016. I also think this is a dangerous precedent. Let me explain why. The fact that we are doing this, let me finish. The fact that we are doing this, and I don't believe that anyone, by the way, should charge Hillary Clinton with a crime that we talked about earlier. I think you don't charge people like this because you don't like them. I don't think you weaponize like a third world country and communists and dictators and tyrants, the judicial system to go after your political enemies.
Sounds like some high school stuff. Where does George Soros come into this?
What the hell does that
Where
even
does
mean?
George
We're
Soros?
talking at a whole different level
How does
here.
George Soros get into this?
George Soros backed Alvin Bragg. You should know that. He was the top donor to Alvin Bragg's campaign.
He's backed a lot of people.
Alvin Bragg doesn't get this job without George Soros. You should know that. And that's pretty low at a high school level. You should be able to understand this down at a high school level, okay? Let's go to college for a second.
Conspiracy theories.
I'm gonna break in on
it's a fact.
on the Soros side of things, because it does get very toxic, that side of the debate. But I just want to ask them, ask Bonnie then, is it a politically motivated witch hunt? Can you see a little bit of what Ben is saying there? Given that this is a Democrat state, there's a Democrat DA in charge. Are you able to bend to that position a little?
No, and I'm going to say this to Ben because he's got the same name as
Alvin Bragg ran on
Let me speak, sir, because he's got the same. Let me speak, please. I will give this to Ben, okay? A DA is elected and runs on a platform. And Alvin Bragg made no bones about wanting to get Donald Trump, okay? So, in that sense, in quotes, every DA is politically motivated. The deal is, hang on. The deal is you take it to the grand jury. The grand jury says yep or no. If the grand jury says yes, it goes to the judge. Then the judge says, I like this, or I'm throwing it out. End of. And that's how it works in the United States.
Ben, yeah, I mean, you either believe in your own justice system or you don't. If you begin to pick away at these institutions of democracy.
I believe in the justice system, but I also think there are bad actors in every sector of life. We've had bad actors that are priests. We've had bad actors that are teachers. We've had bad actors in law enforcement.
And who are Republicans,
and Alvin
too.
Bragg is a bad actor.
And there are bad actors who are Republicans.
Saying, no matter what, no, I said in every sector, Bonnie, I said in every sector, okay? And I'll go back to what I was saying a moment ago. Alvin Bragg ran, and this is going to be the problem when he gets up into the higher courts on appeal, and this is going to fall apart. He ran, and he was on the record. Hell, he was doing TV interviews the week he was indicting Donald Trump. He's a partisan guy who said, vote for me and I'll nail Trump. You show me Donald Trump and I will find you a crime. And by the way, he's wanting to run for governor. This is all political to him. He's trying to buy votes.
Can't you hear what I said before? Alvin Bragg has to take it to the grand jury. He doesn't bring it by himself.
I understand that, but we already talked about the grand jury. The grand jury has a very limited scope of understanding of the charges.
You don't believe in the United States of America's jurisdiction.
Of course I do.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Obviously, you don't.
That's why we have appeals.
Obviously, you don't.
That's why you're going to lose.
Obviously, you don't. Because if you're complaining about the grand jury, which is what you're doing, then you don't.
No, I'm talking about the reality of what a grand jury is.
No. You're complaining about the grand jury system. And therefore, you don't.
No, I'm not. I'm
explaining
how a grand jury works. And the fact is, when this goes to a judge and they see the bias of Alvin Bragg and they see that he created charges out of thin air that are not felonies, out of a misdemeanor that has already reached its statute of limitations, it will be thrown out, and you guys are going to be no different than
You might be right.
You might be right.
Don't knock the grand jury system.
You don't do this in a civilized country.
But don't knock the grand jury system.
There we go.
That's what I'm saying.
The United States of America. This has been fascinating to listen to find out more about the system. Ben Ferguson, Bonnie Greer, thank you both for your insights, your input. We're just getting started. Trump hasn't even landed in New York.